Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy snowy Wednesday. I didn't even realize it was supposed to snow if you are here in the Mile High City. We got D-Mac, Will Peterson, Rachel V. Hill hanging out with you for the next 45 minutes. Gentlemen, how are we this morning, Will?
I'm good. D-Mac showed off his copper mug, so I'll show off my Beagle mug.
Yeah.
What do you got there? What do you got, Rach?
I love my rescue dog. That's my mug.
Nice.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
Wait, I feel like I should show you my cats.
Yes.
They're up there licking each other right now.
Oh my God.
They really are. I don't know if you can see them. They're in the corner licking each other. All right. Anyways.
A week ago today was when I wore the ridiculous outfit.
Yes.
And anyone who watched the whole show understood the context.
Yep.
But people who just saw the clips that we put out on social media, I got so many, did this guy not pay his electrical bill? What is the world is Will doing? Blah, blah, blah. And it was a joke, but I won't be pulling that joke off again because without the context, I think I probably looked kind of silly.
Our coffee break family, they got it. Those are the important people. If you don't watch it, you're just like not part of the insider club. You know what I mean? So whatever. They all get it. It was totally fine. I see your light just went out.
Sorry. What happened to Will? He just got abducted.
It's always a pain. Technology is a huge pain. We already got people in the comments. Edward says, good morning. We had a tornado in Houston. I'm glad to be watching my favorite podcast. Edward, I'm glad you're okay. And I'm happy you're able to tune in with us this morning. Mel says, good morning. This coaching search is not going well, I feel. Well, let's get into that because it's interesting right now. So I want a yes or no, just a one-word answer. Do you think that Greg Penner was hunting this week? Yes or no?
Greg Penner? No.
Yeah. Rob Walton.
Rob Walton, excuse me.
Do I think he was hunting this weekend?
This week.
Big difference between this weekend and this week.
Okay. You think he's been hunting during this search?
No, but I would love to explain.
Okay.
But we'll go ahead.
Well, I think yes. At some point during the search, yes. Because if not, this Jeff Duncan dude from New Orleans is just straight up making stuff up.
Okay.
So to me, at some point, Rob Walton was hunting. But also...
See, Rachel didn't want this, Will. She wanted yes or no. And it's a little bit more complicated.
Sorry.
I wish she allowed us more words.
Yes.
Yes.
I thought I was supposed to stop talking. So
I don't know. Rachel,
go ahead.
Here's the thing. I don't think this Jeff Duncan dude just totally made this up, right? It'd be a very random thing to just make up out of left field. The other thing I will say is it feels like all of Twitter today is Colts have this second interview. Texans have this second interview. Panthers have these guys lined up. Cardinals are doing this. And Broncos, we're just kind of relaxing by the pool. So that sort of makes me think he is hunting, right? Because they're the only team of the five that there is just no momentum toward whatsoever. Do you guys see where I'm coming from?
Okay, let me use multiple words to explain.
Okay.
The answer to your question was Walton hunting. I do believe at some point over the weekend that he was engaging in a hobby that was hunting. I do believe that was the case. However, I have zero doubts. I mean, I'm telling you zero, that when it was time to do business during the week, he was ready and raring to go. Also, I would warn people, you don't have to bring people into your facility to interview them again. You're not required to do so. There may be some common approaches about it, but you don't have to. And it's a very tight circle with this coaching search, okay? Very tight. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we don't know doesn't mean nothing's happening. Boy, I am sticking up for the Waltons and the Penners and the Broncos right here. I don't think they were delinquent or hesitant or doing anything wrong or lazy or anything like that when it comes. I think that dude, what's his name? That reporter guy in New Orleans?
Jeff Duncan.
He blew it. And he wants to go on a podcast, casually throw something out, like the Broncos are treating this like a toy or a hobby. And he was just flat out wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I've seen people defend him like he's a good guy. I don't know him from Adam, but he got this wrong. And what he insinuated was just flat out wrong. Mm-hmm. So it's a good question by you, Rachel, to ask. and I understand how it works, but I'm here to say from everything and every side of it that the Walton Penner group was not distracted. Now, what's going on? That's a different question. And I think what's really going on is Sean Payton blew it. Sean Payton, I believe, was arrogant. I believe, in my opinion, he probably interviewed lousy, unprepared, and made a terrible impression, not just on the Broncos, as we're now hearing of Carolina doing other interviews with Frank Reich and Steve Wilkes. Like, I think this guy just flat out blew it. I think he's got his, dining companion, Colin Cowherd, making excuses for him. And I heard today Cowherd's like opining that that Payton should get the Cowboys job. I mean, listen, when you become buddies with these guys, it really crosses some fuzzy territory in terms of your reporting. And I think Cowherd has crossed it by a mile.
Okay. So I thought that Greg Penner was also with Rob Walton hunting. So that's on me because I thought that they were both out hunting. I thought this was a family affair. But it does kind of open up the question of, are you not allowed to do stuff in your free time? We know that they have all the accessibility to be able to go wherever and come back in a short amount of time. Like, they've got the private jets, they've got all of that. And to D-Mac's point too is, why can't you not do an interview via Zoom or anything like that? Is it because we were told by other reporters that, oh, hey, we know that they're going to be in person here this week and now it's not happening, and that's why
Rachel, exactly. People were going on rumors and half-truths and never had it nailed down. But I'll give props to Josina Anderson, who early on Monday morning said nothing's going on. Josina said that. And she's very connected and talking. She was right. And the whole he's going to be here on Wednesday and then Thursday, and he might be hunting. It's a lot of conjecture out there, not based in any kind of reality, because who really knows what the process is with Greg Penner? We don't know this guy. He's not connected like all these other NFL gossipy, goobabs are with all their silliness. That's right, goobabs. And I just think that it's don't look at the fact that the Broncos, are delinquent because they were doing something silly. Guys, I think they wanted Jim Harbaugh. I think Jim Harbaugh is very flaky. And had they waited to talk to Jim Harbaugh the first time, we might have a totally different story here. I think they were interested in Sean Payton, and Payton blew it. So now let's go. Who else we got? You can't talk to D'Amico Ryans in person at all, not yet, until after the NFC Championship game. And David Shaw, who knows, guys? David Shaw had an interview with the Broncos, and we didn't even know he was a candidate. So now the rumor is today it's either Shaw or D'Amico Ryans. But I'm telling you guys, I know it's a long shot, but I do not think Jim Harbaugh coming in the side door is out of the question. But it could resolve itself today, because if it is David Shaw, there's no reason to wait. If it's David Shaw, you might as well announce it today. There's no point. So I think if it's not announced today, then I don't think it's David Shaw. Could it happen today? Sure. Should they still, even at this late time and date, still consider Harbaugh? Yes. Trust your instincts. He's the most interesting, edgy sort of guy out there, and I think this team needs a little bit of
Okay. Well, I wanted to see your response.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, the whole could they do it on Zoom thing, I thought that was a knock against Harbaugh. So now I'm unclear. Are we okay with Zoom? Or are we not okay with Zoom? Because we're out hunting, we're not hunting. So I want some clarification on that.
Well,
the second thing is Pro Football Talk last night, 10:30 p.m. releases this. There are rumblings that the Broncos will hire a coach on Wednesday. What is rumblings? I don't know. But to me, rumblings feels like someone didn't like the hunting report. So they went to Mike Florio and said, not only are we not hunting, we are so not hunting that we might hire a coach tomorrow. And then Florio runs with it. So a lot of this is a game, you guys, because it's one side looked really bad when Jeff Duncan opened his big mouth and said this about Robson Walton. The Broncos were ticked. So they went to one of their top dogs in Mike Florio and said, that ain't true, and we may hire a guy tomorrow. So That all is really interesting to me too. Last thing, I agree with D-Mac. If it's Shaw, I think it'll happen today. If it's Ryans, it's going to be all quiet on the Western Front for the next 2, 3, 4 days. And the longer this silence goes on, guys, the more and more I'm convinced it's DeMeco Ryans.
All right. On that note, do we believe that the Broncos will get, I don't know if I want to use the word bullied, but it's the first thing that comes to mind, but essentially bullied because of all the talk about this hunting trip into hiring a head coach just to be able to prove something? Because that's the first thing that came to my mind last night when that report came out by Pro Football Talk. I was like, okay, so you just don't want this bad perception on you, so we're going to have this come out, and then what, you are just going to hire a head coach?
Yeah, that report was fascinating. Caught me by surprise. But when I read it, I was like, yep, this is very consistent with other stuff. So to read it and be like, okay, there you go. There are rumblings, guys, all the time. But when I saw it written out by Pro Football Talk, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Because I'm fine with it. My number one guy was Jim Harbaugh. My number two guy was David Shaw. I talked about David Shaw on Coffee Break before David Shaw was even a candidate at all. You know, I've been a David Shaw fan for a long time. I don't know DeMeco Ryans. I don't. You know, so I don't know if he's great. Fine. Listen, I'm over this whole had to be a coach before sort of thing. I think that's actually a bunch of hooey. You know, I think there's plenty of good first-time coaches out there. It's kind of like the New York Jets. Just because it didn't work out with Sam Darnold or Zach Wilson doesn't mean you should also draft another quarterback in the first round. So don't be scared off by it. I mean, just because you got it wrong with Vic Fangio, Nathaniel Hackett, and VJ, you know, it is working with other guys like Kevin O'Connell and Nick Sirianni eventually, and Brian Dable and Mike McDaniel. I mean, there's plenty of guys to mention who are first-time guys that have done quite well. So I'm not using that as a metric. I don't think that matters. I think the metric that you have to use right now, and I'm going to stay consistent to this, the best idea is to minimize George Paton and have a philosophical approach of how you're going to handle Russell Wilson and eventually be able to move on from him or move on with him with other people. That hasn't changed for me. So if that's a first-time guy, fine. I'm still holding out hope for Harbaugh, as pathetic as that might sound. And if it's not Harbaugh, I hope it's David Shaw.
No, I'm with you, D-Mac. Like the Harbaugh thing, he was a little upset with the Broncos that they didn't just hire him, right? They completed a couple Rooney Rule interviews. Harbaugh was theirs for the taking. It got kind of quiet, and so then Harbaugh called him up and said, no, I'm going back to Michigan. But you've been on this, and Stokely and Zach have been on this. He hasn't gotten that big lucrative extension at Michigan that we kept hearing about. Oh, he's going to get more money than Mel Tucker. He's going to get more money than Ryan Day. He's going to become the highest paid coach in the Big Ten. That still hasn't happened. So until Jim puts pen to paper, I'm with you. I don't think you can rule out Greg Penner calling him. And it's like, you know, you're calling an ex and you're saying, I'm sorry, I screwed up. I should have hired you 2 weeks ago. We feel bad that your feelings were hurt, Jim, but we'll send a jet up to Ann Arbor, get you down here to Centennial, and make you the next head coach of the Denver Broncos.
You guys, I cannot see that happening at all. I do not see that happening literally one bit. I think he's staying at Michigan. I think he's like, this is not worth the hassle at this point. I'm just good where I am. D-Mac, you talked about it plenty, where he's just a quirky, kooky dude. I don't remember the exact word you used. Quirky? Is that what the word you used? Kooky. A mix of the two. Anyways, a kooky dude, and I don't think he cares. To be completely honest, I don't think he cares. I think he knows he's going to get his money the next time that he signs. I think he's just going to go through the motions with Michigan. And I see a lot of people in the comments saying, it's just time to move on. Who are actual candidates that you can talk about for this team? And I don't think Sean Payton's in the mix anymore. I think you're both right, where it's just kind of fizzled off a little bit. DeMeco Ryans and David Shaw, I think, are the only two, which is why we heard their names last night in that Pro Football Talk.
Yeah, frankly, I'd be fine with DeMeco or Shaw, but Ryans or Shaw. That's fine. I mean, I understand what they're both about. I don't know DeMeco Ryans nearly as well, but I appreciate his pedigree as a player and a coach. And boy, you can't argue with the way the San Francisco 49ers are doing something. And if we could, get Russell Wilson to play like Brock Purdy we'd be in pretty good shape. So I'm not against that either. I'm not as Mike Evans is being ridiculous. He is being like a crybaby. That it's not Sean Payton. Listen, read the freaking room. Like, Sean Payton is not that hot. He is not that valued. Mm-hmm. Everybody that he's brushed up against has moved on to something else. So at some point, to use this analogy about relationships, sometimes you got to look at yourself and say, maybe it is me. Right. It's not you, it's me. And if Sean Payton's not having that moment right now, I don't know what's going on. He's got a cushy landing spot. He can make $10 million doing nothing at Fox Sports and whatever that does, and he can be on his daughter's podcast all day and have a house in Malibu. His life will be just fine. So, but he ain't it. And for Colin Cowherd to go out yesterday and say, Sean Payton just sitting right there for him, but I don't think he should take it because Russell Wilson has a chiropractor. You want to talk about disingenuous. I mean, my goodness. Like, Russ has his quirks and everything, but oh my God, I'm just realizing Russell Wilson is quirky. I mean, what Colin Cowherd's been doing is actually borderline pathetic for somebody who's, as esteemed as he is. And hey, man, as soon as you pick up a tab for somebody that you got to cover, you're in a sticky spot. It's better to follow my lead and have no friends.
Didn't they say that you should have bought Josh Allen? Aren't you the person who should have bought?
Yes. We were at the library, which is a bar, sports bar in Laramie. I think there's one sports bar in Laramie. He's sitting there with Jordan Palmer, his quarterback coach, and his parents and a buddy. They're just eating chicken fingers and crap. I could have swung that, Wyoming food bill. And I blew it. But to your point, you're actually right about that, Rachel. Had I picked up that tab, I inherently would have been sort of biased towards Josh Allen. I'm just biased towards him now because the Broncos should have picked him instead of Bradley Chubb. So that's my bias on Josh Allen, I suppose, right now. But it's a fair point. I didn't pick up the tab, and so I just have my pride representing me.
All right, so, Rachel, I get that the commentators want us to move on from Jim Harbaugh, so we will. But here's the thing about David Shaw. David Shaw was a great coach at Stanford when he was just replacing Jim Harbaugh and had a lot of Jim Harbaugh's recruits, right? And he kept that momentum going for a couple of years. He did, and his career record with the Cardinals is great. It's something like 95-64. But from 2018 on, once the Jim Harbaugh thing was done and the program was solely David Shaw's, his team did this, and they were 3-9 the last 2 years. And I understand the COVID thing and getting into Stanford's a heck of a lot tougher than it is getting into Oregon.
Keep going.
Well, but D-Mac, they fell off a
transfer
cliff.
Portal. Keep going. NIL. Keep going.
They fell off a cliff. Mm-hmm. Are you okay with that? Because he went from pretty darn good coach to 3-9 the last 2 years. The Broncos may hire a guy who just led two teams to 6-18 over 2 seasons.
Hey, Will, do you know what it takes to get into the University of Oregon? A freaking pulse and a checkbook. It's not that big of a deal to get in there. Or Oregon State. Or Arizona. Or Arizona State. CU, maybe. I'm rolling my eyes a little bit difficult. Anybody can get into Utah. I mean, and then you got Cal and Stanford, UCLA, and USC. Much tougher schools to get into. And then at UCLA and USC, they use that NIL, the first transfer. They paid huge money for their coaches, that sort of stuff. It's just a more attractive place. So to denigrate Stanford, and you're like, oh, well, listen, don't worry about the, NIL transfers, hard to get into. He sucks. It's like these are all really legitimate reasons why the team wasn't as good. COVID, NIL transfers, and it's hard to get into Stanford. You still have to go to class at Stanford. You don't get a free pass at Stanford. So to judge like his success in the past 3 years at Stanford is a defining characteristic, I think is ridiculously misguided.
You're saying that the NFL is going to be easier than having to deal with those things? You think that this team is
way easier? Way easier. All right, here's the question. Do you think David Shaw knows football?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Do you think he knows what a good football player is?
Yes.
Sure.
Did he run a power pro-style offense at Stanford?
For the most part.
No, the answer is yes. That's exactly what he did.
Well,
he is going to find
3-9 the last 2 years. So I it's hard for me to
All right,
judge.
listen, it's a lot easier to find big dummies to play guard in the NFL than to go take chemistry at Stanford. Let me tell you that. You got a salary cap and free agency and a draft. It's amazing what you can do with that.
Jake does wonderful research. I say this all the time on the back end. His decline, David Shaw's decline, started 2 years before COVID, NIL, or the portal.
Hence, right when he stopped riding Jim Harbaugh's coattails, too. Kind of my original point.
Defend him.
Holy cow. Was it easier to get into Stanford 2 years before COVID? I mean, were they letting a lot of community college transfers into Stanford back in the day? I'm sorry. I didn't catch that memo about when I could take basket weaving at Stanford. I didn't realize Algebra 1 was a core class at Palo Alto. Now, I think it was still hard to get there. His decline happens because it's hard to field the football team there, period. And when he had pro-level players, look what he did. And guess what? Good news, everybody. Once you get in the NFL, everybody's a pro-level player.
Okay, what pro-level players have come out of David Shaw's career that did not come from Jim Harbaugh's recruiting class then?
I don't know, Rachel. I don't got a thesaurus on every...
important questions.
Kevin Hogan. I don't know. Christian McCaffrey. How's that for you? Solomon Thomas. How about that?
Ready? Davis Mills.
There you go. I don't know what you want to tell me. Name the last great players, Jake. Smart guy on the back end in the past 5 years that came out of CU and play in the NFL. Smarty pants. Give me that 19 grad. I mean, there's a couple. I know where you could go right now, but
I was going to say, don't get Jake started on the back end. He'll list off every single player. But our point being is there are just questions around David Shaw. It's not that he's completely doomed at this job, but there are a lot of questions compared to other candidates. Will, would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I'm not on the Mike Evans. I'm going to call it a Dick Monfort hire. Did you guys hear that?
It's ridiculous.
Dick Monfort would do. I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to be anti-David Shaw. But I also think there are valid questions to ask about David Shaw and his legitimate candidacy for this job. You know what I'd rather have than David Shaw? I'd rather have Jim Caldwell than David Shaw. I'd rather have Ejiro Evero than David Shaw. I'd certainly rather have D'Amico Ryans. I'd rather have Sean Payton. I'd rather have Dan Quinn. He's just lower on my list. That doesn't mean I'm going to be anti-David Shaw if that's who they pick. But all 5 guys I just named have been in the NFL more recently or have way more NFL experience than David Shaw.
Jim Caldwell's been retired and is 67 years old.
He's been in the NFL so much more recently than Shaw. Shaw hasn't been in the NFL in 15 years, dude. Caldwell
when you're a head coach in college, you have to run a program. You have to deal with the media. You have to figure out the travel arrangements. You have to do the things. It's actually more complicated in college than it is in the NFL. You got a lot more help in the NFL. That's the big thing that trips these guys up. Now you say, oh, well, if it's so easy, why don't more college coaches translate? And listen, that is a fair question. But you're forgetting something too. The Broncos need a complete reset. Okay? And if you hire any of these other guys that are coming up for their first time and haven't had head coaching experience, okay? You don't have to be an NFL head coach, but I think it would help to know what it's like to be the boss. And David Shaw would know that. That being said, don't paint me into a corner because I'm fine if you really think D'Amico Ryans is a better fit because I think you can surround people the right way. Listen, you know what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of George Paton and Russell Wilson. So I need a way to sort of lower that. And again, I'm saying my first guy is Jim Harbaugh. I'm not going to back off of that. That being said, Jim Caldwell, come on.
Okay, so we can't all agree on who we would like to be the next head coach, but let's just pretend any of these guys get the job. Who would you like to see lead the offense and attempt to fix Russell Wilson?
Well, it kind of depends on who gets it, right? If it's Sean Payton, then I want Sean Payton to fix Russell Wilson. If it's D'Amico Ryans, well, he better bring an offensive mind with him, and I think Brian Griese would look pretty good in that role, considering what he's done with 3 different quarterbacks in San Francisco this year, and they're one win from going to the Super Bowl. So yeah, it's like, is Greasy high on my list for Ryans? Of course. Is Peyton high on my list for Peyton because he's Sean Payton? Of course. I also think there's a scenario where David Shaw could be your offensive coordinator in the right system as well, or Jim Caldwell could sort of take on that role in the right system as well. So we're throwing out 5-6 names for the head coaching job. Why not get ambitious? Why can't we hire 2 of them? Why can't we hire 3 of them? Let's assemble an all-star staff here, and that will give the Broncos the best chance moving forward.
I think that's a very salient point by Scrappy Will, and I'll abide by that logic. And there's nothing to say you can't have more of one of these guys on your staff. So I think we found our kumbaya moment, especially because we're bonded against Mike Evans.
Raj, our program director, actually is on this train of bring back Justin Outen to be the offensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos next year. I got a long speech about why he should. So I would like to hear both of your opinions. Should the Broncos bring back Justin Outen, for whichever coach it's going to be the offensive coordinator, because we saw such improvement, I'll lay it that way, in the final 2 weeks? Will?
No, I can't get on board with that. I mean, Outen was a massive part of the problem for 15 weeks, right? Or 16 weeks. And yeah, he redeemed himself a little bit, but that doesn't mean we can ignore all the times we had to bang our heads against the wall in September, October, November, December. No, I wouldn't do that. And guys, there's a reason they're letting Outen interview for all these lateral jobs, because he ain't coming back. They blocked that with Ejiro Evero. Remember, lateral job with the Falcons, they said not happening. Lateral job for Justin Outen, sure, go take those interviews because you ain't in our plans.
Yeah, it's a moot point. They're going to move on from him one way or the other. He's not the best fit no matter what. I understand what Raj is talking about because he's looking to fix Russell Wilson, and he's trying to, Tebow-wise / Seahawk him up, And the truth is, you just got to look at Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy had 67% completion percentage and barely ran the ball. I mean, essentially, that's what you want from Russell Wilson, with a lot more touchdowns than turnovers. It's not the most exciting offense in the world. There's a little improvisation there with Brock Purdy. Good for him. He was nominated as one of the rookies of the year. Well-deserved. And if you could get the same production out of Russell Wilson as Brock Purdy, you'd be okay. The problem is, of course, you valued Russell Wilson like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and what Lamar Jackson's going to get paid. Deshaun Watson maybe foolishly, like Kyler Murray maybe foolishly. Like, you put a value on Russell Wilson that says if you don't win a Super Bowl, it's a failure. And he's just not that guy anymore. He's not worth that value. You got catfish and hoodwinked, my gosh. Oh, brother, where art thou? Logic went out the window. And so you've got to just try to manage the situation. You got to survive it, guys. And the true essence of the real Broncos won't come until you move on from George Paton and Russell Wilson. But I get it. Everybody wants to win this year, and I get it. It was all Hackett's fault. But to think that Justin Outen makes the cut here is, I mean, it's rubbish.
Does Evero get hired?
Yeah, I think he might be the head coach of the Houston Texans.
You think so?
I think so, yeah. I think he's got a great shot.
Well?
I mean, it feels like he's getting second interviews almost everywhere, right? He got another one this morning. It's hard to keep up, but I know he got Texans yesterday. Got another second one today. Maybe the Colts. I can't remember. But it's a guy who it makes me worried, you guys, that they're not more actively trying to keep him in Denver, because clearly he's a hot rising star around the NFL. And it does feel like it's sort of how we open the show. Are the Broncos sneaking around playing chess here, or are they playing checkers and asleep at the wheel? D-Mac thinks they're playing chess. I think they're playing checkers, and letting Evero walk, I think, would be a mistake.
No, I definitely agree. It would be a bummer, but obviously you wish him success wherever he's able to go.
If he gets a head coach,
well, just for the record, the Broncos are playing Jenga, okay? And the pile is like, and we're taking out pieces in the middle. We're playing Jenga, and we're trying for that YouTube video with that dad who somehow, I don't know how the hell he did it. He knocks out the piece that's like 3/4 of the way down. The whole thing just stays up. I mean, I've watched that video like 10,000 times. How did he do it? That's what the Broncos. It's not chess. It's not checkers. It's freaking Jenga. The whole pile may topple over at any second.
I actually love that. I love that they're playing Jenga. I do want to ask you both. Well, you both know I'm not a huge baseball fan. I still do know who Todd Helton is, and he misses the not Ring of Fame, the Hall of Fame, yesterday by 11 votes. Do you think he deserves to be in, or do you think he'll get in the near future? Well,
yeah, I mean, yes to both your questions. I think he deserves to be in, and fortunately, he's trending up, and this is how baseball works. It's really stupid, but he gets like 52% of the vote last year, 72% this year. He'll get like 82% next year, and he'll make the Hall of Fame. But he hasn't played baseball in all those years. So if you're a Hall of Famer then, you're a Hall of Famer now. It's sort of revenge of the nerds with these baseball writers. Like, oh, we spent our whole life getting stuffed into lockers, so now we get to hold it against you and make you wait longer for something you've earned. Kind of dumb. 11 votes is so minuscule in the grand scheme of things. Feel bad for Todd, but he will get in next year.
You want to talk about something stupid? Paper ballots. Like, what are we doing here? But have you guys ever seen a Hall of Fame ballot?
Oh, yeah.
It's like it's a white piece of paper with like 30 names on it and just like a check next to them. I mean, it's like something you would be handed in second grade in 1973, like off the mimeograph machine. You know, it's just like one of these deals from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You know, it's stupid. And 4% of the voters who could vote didn't even vote. It's the most ridiculous process. It absolutely should be electronic. You should not be allowed to vote if you don't cover baseball on a regular basis. I will say what's cool about it, and I'm rolling my eyes at cool, because a lot of the things they do is so stupid. But I do love the fact that it's so hard to get into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. I just think it's...
Oh, no. He's getting a call. Who is it going to be this time? Who is it? Oh, no, we lost you. We can't hear you. Nope.
You're muted somehow.
Who called DMAC? That's always the question. It's always
Rachel, he was about to make this big, grand point. Like I was sitting on the edge of my chair, and then it was just...
Can we hear you now?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Who called you?
You know who called me.
Never
It's like, hey, how long has coffee break been going from 10:30 to 11:15? I mean, it's not the first day, right?
Definitely not. Definitely
I'm
not.
not going to guess because I don't want to get myself in trouble.
God, just leave it there. Yeah. Just leave it there. And yes, I do it on my phone, which is usually fine, and blah, 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 blah. Anyways, make it electronic. Cut out a lot of these voters. Hey, if you don't vote, you don't get to vote next year. The end. How about making that nice and easy? You know, if you miss a vote, just you're gone. Back to the more important thing about Todd Helton. It's disappointing that this really ridiculous system is keeping somebody who should be in the Hall of Fame painfully having to wait another year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, really dumb. And if you look at the numbers, Todd Helton was a better player than Scott Rowland. I mean, give me a break. But, you know, you play these stupid reindeer games about Coors Field. And Todd, you know, the best parts of Todd's career when he was the youngest and in the best shape were right in the middle of the steroid era. And that's kind of a tricky one. Now, Todd was never linked with anything, okay? There are a lot of side eyes and raised eyebrows and that sort of thing. But everybody got that treatment. Everybody was treated with those side eyes and eyebrows during that time period. Mm-hmm. So his timing is kind of odd. But I'm way over that. I mean, way, way over that. I think the roid guys should get in too, because I think there's different eras of baseball, and some of them are really horrific. The fact that African-American players weren't allowed to play in baseball until Jackie Robinson is shameful to the nth degree. But yet there's tons of players before African-Americans were allowed who are in the Hall of Fame. Well, what about that era? You know, what about the gambling era back in the early 1900s with the Black Sox? What about that era? There's guys in the Hall of Fame from that era. And so the steroid era, while shameful and embarrassing, was just another era where there's all sorts of bad things going on. It doesn't stop the performance of the players who performed at the best during that time. So I think it's actually irrelevant. So the fact that Todd has to wait another year, to me, is like ridiculous. First of all, he's not connected to steroids whatsoever. He's got better numbers than Scott Rowland. And most importantly, really why he should be in there, he is the defining player in the history of a team. He's it, guys. It's a Major League Baseball team, no matter how the Monfort's treated, and he's a defining player. He is the Colorado Rockies. He never played anywhere else. He played in a World Series. He was the best player at his position for several years. He's an incredible defensive player as well as offensive player. Todd Helton, 1,000% deserves to be in right now. And the fact that there were 11 votes, 11 crappy votes out of 400 keeping him away. And don't forget, guys, you can vote for multiple guys. You can vote for up to 8 or 9 guys. It's not just one guy. And the fact that some ding-dongs didn't also include Todd. I mean, the Rockies are a Major League Baseball team. And think about the defining player in the history of the Reds or the Yankees or the Red Sox not being in the Hall of Fame. It's ridiculous. Crazy. It's ridiculous. So it was a stupid day yesterday. I'm sorry Todd has to wait. I think he'll get in next year. I'm just bummed that he has to go through this crap and this foolishness to get what he truly deserves.
That was D-Mac's speech for why Todd Helton should be in the Hall of Fame this year. Appreciate it. I do quickly, the show is coming to an end so fast, but I do want to touch on the Avs and the Nuggets last night. Both interesting, but ended up being good games, obviously, because they both get the win. But obviously, Jared Bednar becomes the winningest head coach in franchise history. Congratulations to him. And then Nikola Jokic, of course, he just saved the game, right? The struggle that the Nuggets have, and you wonder if it's because Jokic had taken some time off, not putting it on him at all, but just saying it takes a little bit of time when you have a few days off to kind of work up to it. And of course, you saw the 19-point lead that they just lost, and they didn't score. I think they scored 2 points in the final 4 minutes or whatever it is. So I just want to get both of your thoughts real quick before we welcome in another guest.
Yeah, I'll just start briefly. First of all, congratulations to Jared Bednar. The Avs have been so good for so long, and he actually broke a Nordiques dude record. That tells you how many wins this is for Bednar, Bob Hartley, Mark Crawford, et cetera, et cetera. So greatest coach in Avalanche history. I think we can say so for a fact. On the Nuggets, they just can't take the foot off the gas, right? That's what drives me crazy about this team. At home, it feels like they keep the foot on. On the road, they tend to relax. It came this close to burning them. I'm happy they got the win, but scoring 36 points in the second half, you kidding me? That's not going to cut it come playoff time.
Winning on the road is difficult in the NBA, just period. The Nuggets are actually over 500 on the road, barely. And that's one of the better road records in the NBA. Never mind their sterling record at home. They hung on. They got the win. Good enough. That's all I care about in the regular season, if you can scrape by with some of those road wins. Tonight in Milwaukee seems impossible. Jamal Murray played for 40 minutes. I wouldn't even play Jamal Murray. If you want to play Jokic, fine, but I'd be tempted to dump this game completely, in all honesty. This game against Milwaukee means absolutely positively nothing. It's not a litmus test of anything, and you got a road win against New Orleans, who's in your conference. In terms of the Avalanche, I'm sitting in front of Bednar after the game. We're soft. We're lazy. I didn't like our this. I didn't like our that. And I had to check with some other muggles, they won tonight, right? You had to double check it. Eric Johnson plays his 700th game. Bednar, I didn't like Eric Johnson's game tonight. Ouch. It was kind of like that. However, for the first time, and I've been at every Avs game, a Georgie chant came from the crowd late in the game. And for a guy who was struggling, a guy who needed some mental health days to take off, that sounded sweet. And it didn't hurt that on the other side of the ice was Darcy Kemper when the Georgie chants were coming down from the rafters.
I like it. And I honestly like that Jared Bednar wasn't impressed with how they played last night, because it wasn't great hockey by any means. And I think that's what it takes, right? They all want to get back to where they were last summer, and so do all of we. And we also want to see the Nuggets be able to do that this year in June too. All right, we do have a guest, and we're kind of switching things up a little bit because I learned something very new this week, that Will Peterson and Richie Carney are big Bachelor fans. Interesting. Never would have guessed this in a million years that these two underneath me are big Bachelor fans. So first of all, I want to know how you two got into this. Richie, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks, Rachel. I guess I've watched two seasons of The Bachelor in my whole life, and I was encouraged to do so by other people. So I wouldn't call myself like a lifelong diehard, but I became fully invested in this season after listening to Will be the lonely man on the island, trying to pump up the excitement for it, and listening to D-Mac and Andrew Mason and James Merilatt just totally rip it down. I'm a foxhole guy, so I said, Will, I'm in this with you, and I couldn't be happier because it's going to be fun.
Wait, did we all just see D-Mac's pajama pants?
I did not.
I'm going to focus on his roses.
Okay.
Oh, you see my pajama pants? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm wearing pajamas and I have roses.
I love it. I love it. Okay,
All
well,
right.
Wait till I at the end of this, wait till I tell you where these roses are from. But I'll wait till the end because we're going to get into Bachelor talk.
Okay.
Yes. I've been watching The Bachelor, Rachel, for 11 or 12 years. Honestly, I'm in a pool with my mom and my aunts where we all draft and we have fantasy teams and you get points for how far your women go in the season. And on the first night, I lost 3 of my 5 draft picks. So I'm not feeling so hot.
Okay, so I love it. So it's just another way to kind of almost keep up with sports, but this time you're doing it with real people, and that is on The Bachelor. So I'm not a Bachelor fan. I've watched a few seasons here and there with friends, but I did put together my own Rachel's Bachelor picks. So I'm ready for your guys' opinions of how we're going to do this. Let's see. Okay. So here's The Bachelor. I don't even know his name. What is his name?
Zach.
George.
All right. Zach, I know he was born in 1996, so he's about my age. Congratulations to Zach. Okay, here are my picks for the drama queens. Are either one of these girls still available?
One of them is.
Oh, damn. So I already got one wrong. Okay, I was expecting them to just dominate. Which one's gone?
The one on the left. Christina, the one on the right, is still there.
She's going to be the main drama queen. Get ready. She's going to have a ton of drama this season, everybody. She's going to make girls cry. That's how it's going to be. The always in tears girl is going to be this chick. Is she still around?
She is. Crazy Cat, the dancer.
Perfect. She's going to be in tears a lot this season. Be ready for it. Leaves because it gets too tough. Is this chick still around?
She is, and I think you're wrong. I think Bailey came to play, so.
Okay.
She looks like she's getting ready to go on a hike.
She is outdoorsy and adventurous.
Oh, okay.
Nailed it.
I could just see Will smile right now of like, oh my goodness.
Well, no, this is Richie's segment. He's killing it so far. So I'll chime in if I need to.
America's sweetheart right here. Everyone's going to love her.
Oh my God, that's Brianna, right?
Yes.
Yeah, she got the first impression rose from America
Boom.
on the first vote.
And she
Wait, how
totally
did she not
backed it
just
up.
win?
What did you say?
How does she not win?
She'll save
It's a
two
long
first
pick.
round. She's
Yeah,
a
she
player.
played
She's in my
one
top 5.
Yeah.
Okay. I said in the top 5, I picked 3 girls. So I think 3 of these girls will possibly make it in the top 5. The other 2, not sure of. Are any of these girls still available?
Well, I know the one on the left, Olivia L, got eliminated, and she was going to get the rose from me today because I thought she presented herself very well, and Zach has poor judgment and did not select her through the first round of cuts.
Okay, but the other 2 are still available.
Yes.
Well, this does break my heart because, to be honest, I had her winning the whole dang thing, and she's already gone. So this is very upsetting for Rachel over here. So, who do you guys have winning? I'm curious.
Will?
I asked Tara, and she got eliminated night 1. So we are on the same page, Rachel. She was my number 1 overall draft pick. Didn't even get a rose after the first night.
Dang. Richie?
I don't know. I right now I narrowed it down to the 5 winners, or the 5 like top players: Bailey, Catherine, Christina, Brianna, and Katie with an I and a Y. I would say that I don't think Christina, the troublemaker, is going to win, but she knows how to play the game, so she's going to make it far. If I had to back a horse right now, I'd probably say Catherine or Brianna, who got America's vote of confidence.
Lauren says Brianna in the comments. D-Mac, if you had to give out a rose to the 3 of us, who would you be giving it to?
I like Tammy Ann.
I don't know who that is. But
Tammy Ann. She lives in a van down by the river.
oh, God.
Her hobbies include skateboarding and bottle cap collection. She has a toothbrush which is appropriate for her tooth. Tammy Ann.
I have a feeling some reference is being made. I'm not getting it because I don't know movies or.
There's a Saturday Night Live video that we'll show you later.
Perfect. I feel like I knew something was going on there. Okay, D-Mac, tell us about your roses real quick.
The best thing anybody can do when they get married is choose something simple for your anniversary gift. So I made a pledge at our wedding that on our anniversary to my wife, I would get her a red rose and she would put it in a vase. We had a simple ceremony at our wedding, and that's all we get each other. I get her a red rose, she puts it in a vase, and when it eventually dies, she puts it, and we have 30-something roses in our little curio right here. And these are some of the roses symbolizing our love. She keeps them all. She has, how long we've been at? 28? 30? 28. She has 28 roses that are just looking just like this.
That's
a guy
cool.
that does something so thoughtful and romantic like that, and you can't wrap your head around watching The Bachelor.
Yeah, because this is why I'm against getting engaged on the Jumbotron. It's full of crap and meaningless. This is true love.
D-Mac, there's something in all of us that caters toward trashy reality TV. There are those who've accepted it, like Will and myself. There are those who are still in denial about it, like you. But I'm here for you whenever you're ready to cross that bridge.
I am rooting for Tammy Ann to finally get all of her tests cleared with the doctor so she can engage in this competition. But there's one test that's really hanging up Tammy Ann, and she'll be back at her job as a cashier soon enough.
What I've learned in this 5 minutes we've been doing this, Richie showed up today looking spiffy. Richie needs to have an application go in for The Bachelor to be this. That's what I've learned
I would
here.
be so for that. Yes,
I wouldn't turn it down. If it was
next
offered, if they
season
offered me, I
will
wouldn't
be-
turn it down.
But
The next
Richie,
season
all the girls on The Bachelor would have to be 5'2" or shorter.
Hey, I'm 5'9"3/4, so I've never been tall, so I just try to be funny.
Dude,
That's
have
all
they
I got.
ever had a short Bachelor?
I don't know. I'd have to look it
No,
up.
no, Richie.
But if
No.
you're funny, it doesn't matter. Richie's very funny. D-Mac's over here acting like he's 6'8". Simmer down a little
Right.
bit.
Who last time I
goodness.
saw D-Mac, I think I did have to look down a little bit during our conversation.
Dude, do you think I should be on The Bachelor? What are you nuts? Hey, listen, tell me when the frustrated middle-aged man, newly divorced show comes up. Hey girls, I got more money than your dad. Want to go on a date?
Hey, I like Kim. No divorce talk on this show, all right?
Let me get in here super duper quick. The next season will be The Bachelorette. So Richie would just be a contestant on that.
Oh,
that I feel like is the right
The
lane.
Bachelor. So that's Richie's path. Is whoever gets second or third on this season will become The Bachelorette. Hopefully it's Brianna, and Richie can go pursue her.
yeah, it'd be great watching Richie line up with like 17 guys that look like Nate Jackson. Good luck.
Oh, I feel very confident in my ability.
Yeah.
Girls like funny guys. Richie is funny. Give him some props right there.
Substance
And
over sizzle, D-Mac. Substance over sizzle. That's why Brianna's going to go the distance.
he showed up looking spiffy today, so I'm going to give it. I'll get on the application, Richie. Don't you worry about it.
Tammy Ann is listening to a Def Leppard record.
All right, you just gotta zip it. We need somebody to call D-Mac up. Have Raj call D-Mac up real quick. All right, that's gonna do it for this episode of Coffee Break. We will be back tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Huge thank you to Richie and Will and D-Mac, of course, for joining me, and to everybody else in the comments. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Great for Tammy Ann.